Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome, everyone, to today's Explainer. If you've ever felt completely paralyzed by a massive looming project, well, you are exactly where you need to be. Today, our goal is to permanently defeat that project paralysis. We're going to explore a brilliantly effective reverse engineering tool from Thomas Alethea's guide, 12 Steps to a Good Life. Get ready, because this is going to completely change how you look at your deadlines. To get us there, we're following this really clean 5-part roadmap. 1, we'll look at the procrastination trap. 2, enter backward planning. 3, reverse engineering your timeline. 4, planning for contingencies. And finally, 5, acting in the present. Let's get started. Section 1, the procrastination trap. Look, ambitious goals can feel incredibly overwhelming, right? We all have these big dreams, projects, and visions for a future that genuinely matter to us. But getting from that initial idea phase to the actual finish line, sometimes it feels like trying to cross an ocean in a rowboat. So I have to ask you, why do our best laid plans always seem to fall apart? Think about that feeling for a second. You sit down at your desk, stare at a totally blank screen, the clock is just ticking away, the deadline is rushing toward you, and you do absolutely nothing until it turns into a frantic last-minute mess. Now, what's really interesting about this quote from Robert Burns is how it perfectly captures that this isn't exactly a new problem. The best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. If you're frustrated with your own lack of progress, you really need to validate that frustration. Human beings have quite literally been struggling to execute their plans for centuries. But Alethea's text gives us a fascinating look into exactly why this happens in our brains. The book describes this absolute mental tug-of-war happening inside your head between a few very distinct characters. First up, you have the rational decision maker. This part of you desperately wants to plan ahead and do the responsible thing. But then there's the instant gratification monkey. This guy lives entirely in the present moment and easily distracts you with comfortable, easy tasks. The monkey essentially convinces you to just push the work onto future you, that mythical, perfect version of yourself, who will supposedly do all the hard work later, but who obviously doesn't actually exist. Eventually, time runs out and the panic monster takes over, terrifying you into action at the last possible second. And all the while, your massive project is just sitting there like an unmovable 800-pound gorilla that your brain simply doesn't believe it can conquer. Moving on to Section 2. Enter backward planning. That endless cycle of anxiety and panic is exhausting. So, let's step out of the trap, shall we? Normally, we try to tackle our goals using forward planning. We start today, look out into the distance, and immediately get overwhelmed by all those future unknowns. But Aletheia suggests a completely different approach here, backward planning. Instead of staring into the foggy abyss of the future, you start at the goal and work backward. This provides clear, logical stepping stones. Your past failures aren't due to a lack of willpower. They're simply the result of this flawed method of forward planning into the unknown. So the crucial point is, what exactly is this method? Backward planning is a specific reverse engineering timeline tool designed expressly for achieving long-term projects. We are fundamentally flipping the script here. Instead of starting at the starting line, we are going to start at the finish line and work our way back to today. Which brings us to Section 3, reverse engineering your timeline. Okay, put your coach's hat on with me here. How do we take that terrifying 800-pound gorilla and actually shrink it down? We use Alethea's timeline tool. Step 1, you begin by assigning a firm completion date. Step 2 is where the magic happens. Instead of planning your first step, you identify the very last step required just before completion. And then step 3, you estimate the time needed for the next to last step and you work backward chronologically until you reach the present day. Mapping it all out on a calendar like this is what guarantees a truly realistic timeline. And this brilliantly illustrates what that looks like in practice. Let's say you're writing a book. In 12 months, that's your goal completion, your big launch. Working backward, month 11 is your final polish and review. Month 6 is finishing the first draft. Month 1 is getting the core outline completely done. Which brings us all the way back to today, where your only job is to write your first implementation intention. Something tiny, like, if I sit at my desk, I will write for 3 minutes. But visually mapping a project out from right to left, you're basically forcing your brain to think from the future back to today, eliminating all that overwhelming unknown. Let's jump into Section 4, planning for contingencies. Now, as incredibly great as this reverse engineered timeline is, we definitely need a reality check. Life is messy. I absolutely love that Alethea includes this Mike Tyson quote in the text. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. It's funny, right? But it's also incredibly true. If you don't prepare for the unexpected, your beautiful backward plan is going to completely shatter the moment something goes wrong. And that is exactly why contingency planning is absolutely critical to this process. To protect your timeline, you need to run a what-if contingency check. Alethea suggests asking 3 very specific questions about potential obstacles. First, how likely is the event to happen? Second, how much damage will it do to the plan? And third, what's the cost, in time, money, or effort, to mitigate that risk? By asking these questions in advance, you ensure that a missed deadline or a sudden emergency doesn't derail your entire project. You'll already know exactly how to pivot. Finally, Section 5, acting in the present. Let's move to and see how this builds. We've built the timeline. We've prepared for the absolute worst. Now we bring this entire narrative to its climax. Alethea makes this profound point. The future we expect is just that, an expectation. The future doesn't actually exist. It really never has. Therefore, your actions in the present matter, because you cannot act in the past, and you certainly cannot act in the future. You can only act now. Your backward timeline is an incredible map, for sure, but the walking only ever happens today. So I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. Look at that 800-pound gorilla in your own life right now. What massive long-term project are you going to reverse engineer starting today? Don't let the panic monster dictate your timeline anymore. Pick your finish line, assign that firm date, work backward to this exact moment, and take that very first step. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I honestly can't wait to see what you build.